Welcome to the Every Learner Everywhere Strategies for Success webinar series for 2024. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. My name is Norma Hollebeck, and I'm the Senior Manager for Network Programs and Services with Every Learner Everywhere. Before I introduce our panelist and moderator, I'd like to give you just a little bit of information about Every Learner Everywhere and the mission of our network. Every Learner Everywhere is a collaboration of higher education organizations with the expertise in evaluating, implementing, scaling, and measuring the efficacy of digital learning and its integration into pedagogical practice. Every Learner Everywhere is sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and here at Every Learner, we work with colleges and universities to build capacity among faculty and instructional support staff to improve student outcomes with digital learning. Our mission is to help institutions use new technology to innovate teaching and learning with the ultimate goal of increasing student success, especially for first-generation college students, poverty-impacted students, and racially minoritized students. A quick housekeeping note, throughout the presentation, we welcome your questions in the Q&A section. If participants raise their hands, we will not be able to unmute you. However, we will be monitoring the Q&A as well as the chat section. So, moving forward to our panel discussion, please join me in welcoming our moderator for today's session, Patty O'Sullivan. She is the Manager of Content Development and Special Projects for Every Learner Everywhere. Patty?
Thank you, Norma, and welcome everyone. Before we begin, I want to say that this does feel like a deja vu moment for me. I graduated college 6 months before the launch of the World Wide Web, so I'm showing my age here. As you can see that I put the dates in the slide. And the internet wasn't really a big part of my graduate school training. And I just remember starting work, being issued an email and not being told how to use it, and really kind of freaking out. And I feel like we're at that moment with generative AI going public and all of its applications to the educational and workspaces. It feels like that moment. So we're going to dive into that today. So let's get to it and introduce our panel. All right, so Miriam, I'm going to have you go first and introduce yourself, followed by Izzy and then Jenna.
Alrighty, I'm Miriam Clark. I'm a pharmacy student at Ole Miss. I'm a pharmacy major and I'm a freshman, and I'm really excited to be here.
Great. Izzy?
Hi, my name is Isabella. I am also at Ole Miss. I am a business major, and I am also very excited to be here and hear what everybody has to say.
Welcome. All right, Jenna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna. I attend Sam Houston State University. I'm majoring in education right now, and I'm also a first-gen student. So,
Awesome. Well, welcome all of you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy semester to be with us. I'm going to start with you, Miriam. Do you use AI for academic purposes? And if so, how? Talk to us about that.
I use AI specifically in my writing courses. My teacher actually introduced us to several resources that we could use, like Perplexity AI and Grammarly and Hemingway. And she was really good at explaining how to use them. And I use Perplexity for like finding sources for writings and stuff because I spend way too much time on the internet, Google Scholar, looking for academic articles that I can trust and like cite in my papers. And Perplexity cuts down on so much time that I could be spending writing and like managing my drafts. That's really useful. Grammarly, of course, I use for grammar and making sure that all the technical aspects are correct because a paper can be great, and if it has terrible grammar, it's a big no-no. And then Hemingway is another resource that I use alongside Elicit. And Hemingway basically helps you with phrasing certain paragraphs that you think could have better structure or things like that. And Elicit is really good at summarizing things and getting clear cut to the point. So I use that to help me narrow down and cut down fluff. So all these resources are really great and they're free on the internet. You can pay for subscriptions, but I use the free version. So that's how I use it. I mainly use it for writing. I don't really use it for math or other things like that, just because those are a lot more involved in the learning technique. But I feel like AI usage in writing can be really helpful.
Great. Jenna, do you want to add anything to that? Do you use AI?
Yes, so I would also like to piggyback off of what Miriam had said. I also love Grammarly. I use it for a lot of essays all the time. It is very helpful. But unlike her situation, I was not introduced to it like from one of my teachers in the past or professors now. I kind of just went looking on my own for help, and Grammarly was a great resource for me.
Awesome. What about you, Izzy?
So it's pretty much the same situation as Miriam. I was introduced by my professor last semester to Perplexity, Elicit, Grammarly. I've kind of known for that for several years. Um, but I use Perplexity the most, I'd say, mostly to like if I need a paragraph and it needs just a little more, I guess, build to it. I can kind of expand my paragraphs through there. Um, I the fluff too. I use that to get rid of like extra words that I don't need or even sentences that I don't need. And then the sources too. Those it's hard to find sources on things like Chat GPT because they will completely just, make up sources versus Perplexity. That's you can find academic articles and all of that on there as well.
Right. Yeah, I love that about Perplexity too. Well, Izzy, let's stick with you for a second because you did mention that you'd received guidance on AI. Do you, outside of, because you said you were introduced to AI through your writing class, has your institution or any of your other instructors given you any kind of guidance about AI, like in terms of policy or what's out there that would be useful in that particular discipline?
For other professors, no, it's just been my writing professors. And then for like the university itself, I'm sure there's, like the smaller webinars that you can go to, just in the student union or something, but I those aren't very popular. So I'd say that the institution kind of lacks in that department of, educating students on AI. But my professor last semester, she was great. I mean, she really explained everything, what to do, what not to do, and all of that.
Great. What about you, Miriam? Because you mentioned that too, that you were introduced to AI through your writing classes, but have any of your other instructors talked about AI?
Not currently. Most of my other subjects are STEM related, so they're science classes, chemistry classes. And I know there are resources that you can use for math equations and that kind of stuff, but the teachers and professors really expect you to be able to work through that on your own. All the tests are proctored, so AI would not be beneficial at all in that environment because you're taking time away from your own learning. Whereas in writing, my professor was like, this is a tool, this is a resource, let me guide you and like teach you how to use it ethically so that way you can one, not plagiarize, and two, be able to use the writing as a resource and help it with your voice and everything like that. So that was useful. And otherwise, I really wouldn't have looked into writing with AI if she hadn't brought it up because that never would have crossed my mind. So I'd say that was nice.
Interesting. All right. Jenna, what about you? Has your institution or any particular instructor made it a point to introduce the class to AI?
So in my experience, I feel like they have not guided me and all my other fellow students or everyone else in the class. They don't really guide us and tell us, how it can be used or give us other, tools that we can use, but they do mention like, you can use Grammarly, you can use this, you can use that. They do introduce it, but I feel like they do not guide you on how to use it. It's kind of I feel like also since AI is it's becoming more new to a lot of people, some of my professors, they don't know how to use it, they're not familiar with it, so they just kind of mention to you, if you know this, go ahead with it and use it to help you, and if not, you know, do it on your own.
Yeah, we're all learning together, aren't we? So and I'm gonna pivot to you, Izzy. My next question was gonna ask you if you felt your institutions were adequately preparing you to live and work in a world with AI, but it sounds like you all would say no at this point anyway. So I'm gonna change the question. Izzy, what do you think your institution or your professors could be doing to help prepare you to work in a world dominated by AI?
That's a great question. So I think everybody needs to be educated on AI. I just think they need to, I guess, explain more how to, not rely so much on the technology. Just use it as, a tool, not writing an entire essay or like for example, a few weeks back, I was told I should use AI to write like a thesis statement, and next to this thesis statement, I just have to write that it was written by AI. I think that shouldn't be encouraged because you should be able to figure that out on your own. And that's where it comes into like in the future in work. You should be able to do this stuff on your own. That's usually what you're getting paid to do. Um, so I'm not quite sure what the university could do differently. Um, but I do think that it should be less encouraged to, write complete essays on just using AI.
Mhm. Yeah, and I actually know one of the writing professors at Ole Miss who says that she can tell immediately if something is written entirely by AI, just little little clues, excuse me. Jenna, what about you? What do you wish that your institution will do and the rest of your time there to prepare you for working in a world with AI?
So in my case, I think it would be a lot more beneficial if the professors and, you know, the people that we look to for work and things like that, I think it would be beneficial if they learned it themselves and they were able to kind of guide you. But I do agree with what Izzy was saying. It should not be encouraged to where, they say, well, go use this and let it write your whole essay and maybe tweak it up. I mean, that should not be encouraged. I mean, you're in school, it's your paper, but when using things like Grammarly, for your grammar or punctuation, it's very helpful. If I'm writing an 1,000-word essay and I miss a couple of periods, or maybe I double spaced in there, and Grammarly will tell you, it'll put a red underline under it and it'll tell you to fix it, or give you another option of how to write something. I think it's very useful, but I think it would be very beneficial if professors and the institution themselves would educate themselves on it and be able to guide you, if you wanted that resource or tool.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to that discussion, Miriam?
Actually, yeah, a bit. Okay. So when we were talking about institutions prepping students for AI usage in the future, I know at least for the University of Mississippi, there have been several people looking into creating an AI tool class, like offering the class for like freshmen or whoever wants to take it, and kind of talking about how to use AI and where it's going to lead us and what the future is going to look like. So I know that is in the works, and I think that would be a lovely thing to offer students. And two, I think it would be really nice for, as students pick their major, to maybe have a class or a professor in there that will teach major specific usages of AI. Like for me, I'm a pharmacy student, and I am really interested in seeing how AI can be used in like drug manufacturing and like running algorithms trying to figure out symptoms and drug usage to help cut down time on that. I do think it's a little bit of a slippery slope that Jenna and Isabella were talking about with using AI to write a whole paper. I'm not sure that anybody is really being a proponent for that, but I do think that students can take that and run with it, which is why professors need to set clear boundaries on what can and can't be used, and like defining plagiarism, like the APA and the people who write the MLA handbooks talking about how to cite AI and usage of your paper, and that like it's so new and it's so fresh to us that we have to come up with a new like lists of rules and regulations for it before we can really use it adequately and well in our world. And that is something that's a big conversation. And I think AI could be extremely useful And I think we should look into it more and that kind of stuff because it's gonna be here. It is here, and I feel like it
There's
can
no
be a
escaping
great
it.
tool, right? And it's better to embrace it than to huddle around all the fear mongering of it. I mean, the whole Terminator series was basically AI propaganda, so that's something to combat with.
Terminator, wow. Um, I like what you said though, Miriam. You kind of talked specifically about how AI could be used or what interested you about AI in your future profession. I'd like Jenna and Izzy to speak to that too. Jenna, how do you see AI working, or how would you like to what interests you about AI in terms of your future profession?
So I think it's a really great tool, all in all. I mean, if you need backup, there's a resource that you can have. If no one around you knows, how to do something specific, you can refer to it. But I still do agree that it should not be encouraged completely, But I think it's been a really great tool so far. I mean, people have been able to do medical things with AI and diagnose certain things. I mean, it's been a great helpful tool so far, and I believe it will be in the future as well. So I think it's a great tool, especially for the future.
Yeah, I often hear people who research AI and develop AI saying, this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better after this. Izzy, what about you? You're a business major, correct? What interests you about AI in terms of business?
So when you originally asked this question, I immediately thought about my stepdad. Actually, he and my mom recently started a business in Florida, and it's construction. It's for hurricane shutters and all of that. And I remember when Chat GPT became like a huge thing. Everybody was kind of just hearing about it. It was getting more popular, and he was like, well, I can write um like a proposal for either like the business proposal or just saying like how much a job would be worth, and it would be completely from AI. And obviously he would tweak it a little bit, but being in the business field, I feel like that's just a great example of how you can use AI. And that isn't really like a negative thing. It's more of, a tool to help you out to cut down time, because just from seeing it at home, it can get pretty stressful with all the things going on. So I think that that's a great benefit for AI, just like in the business world.
I love that. So, Izzy, we'll stick with you. Do you have concerns about AI? Like I know we've all been talking about how it's very positive, but do you have concerns about AI? Like that maybe some negative applications?
I do, and I think anybody will, because it is, for right now, it's pretty unknown. Well, I guess not pretty unknown, but there is unknown aspects of AI. So I think it can be, I mean, obviously, good or bad, but my concerns are, I kind of, I guess this is kind of rude to say, but I feel like it's almost dumbing down our generation. Um, because it's having kids from like K through 12 and then above into college. You're teaching these kids to use these tools, but they're going to take advantage of it because they want the easy way out. They want, AI to do their homework for them. I mean, I've seen it for years now. And it's really unfortunate, because is that the kid's fault for just, not being a so-called good student? Or does that fall on teachers and professors and universities and schools for not being educated on that and then not setting the correct policies for these students? Um, for example, I know an attorney, and he said that um, one of the kids that was in an internship, he completely wrote something for a specific case, and it was all AI, and AI made something up, and this was for a really, really important case. And they got in serious trouble because this kid was messing around with AI and it bit him in the butt. I mean, that's just my concerns. I think that it can be a tool, but if you take it too far, it's just not very good.
So in that particular case, the intern didn't check sources, the intern didn't like I'm just thinking like that's a situation depending on what the issue was, the case could have been thrown out, right? I mean, is that
Exactly.
yeah, that I
Yep.
really had not thought about that. That is kind of scary.
Yeah, and that can be with any profession too. It's not just, that specific example. It can be really anything.
Miriam, do you have concerns about AI?
Okay, so I don't have any big concerns about AI just because I feel, okay, I'm trying to think of the correct way to word this. I don't have
You're
really
not
major
thinking
concern.
that the Terminator is coming back, right? Like that was a joke.
Yeah, obviously. I don't think that Arnold Schwarzenegger is gonna come and kill me from the future, but I'm rather more excited for it than having any major concerns. My biggest concern is probably the lack of effort that students will put into things if the easy route is given to them, kind of like Isabella said. Like, for example, in writing, students might lose their voice. Like, a really big thing in writing is being able to have your own voice and your own way that you word things and portray information. And AI is so systematic and in that way that it really sucks all the humanity out of it. And so that's like one of my bigger concerns, I guess I would say, is that students who aren't trained to use it properly will take the easy way out, like Isabella said. And that comes down to more of a character issue than anything else. I'd say like you have to train up kids and like normative ways to be able to use this before you just like throw it at them and say, here you go. So
I think that's fascinating, the idea of, it could be used to help students find their voice, but it could also have the opposite effect, if you're using it so young that you never develop your voice. That's really interesting. What do you think, Jenna? What do you have any concerns?
So yes, what y'all were saying about kind of either finding the voice, maybe if it helps you, or kind of losing it or not having one, or being able to put something in your own words. Um, Another way that I like to think about that, and not so much academically, the use of AI, but in other words, I mean, I don't know if y'all are familiar with it, but Snapchat came out with its own little AI thing, and it's like a little buddy that you can text. And to me, like, my concerns with that is, like, our generation, we are very technology savvy. I mean, we are always on computers, always on phones, and that's what we run to. And it's been a concern in the past. You've heard people talk about, the lack of human interaction that we're having. I mean, and that was before I started using AI for academic purposes. That was just when I would just be on my phone all day. I mean, that would be what I heard a lot about. And now, seeing Snapchat come out with a little buddy that you can text all day, I mean, there's concerns there. I mean, you don't want, a child, or even at my age, young into college, or any age, you can get really tied into talking to some little thing on your phone, and you just kind of shut the world around you off. And I think that's my concern with AI.
Yeah, that is frightening. I had a conversation recently with my son, who's a few years older than you all, and something about him having to go to the bank, and he kept putting it off. And I said, "Why don't you just go?" And he said, "Because I'd have to talk to a human." He's like, "Oh, that's so sad." All right, I'm gonna go to some of the questions from our audience because they're rolling in here. Um, this first one, have any of you ever been asked to write a response to what AI has generated and to critically analyze the AI results? If so, have you come across errors or biases in the AI? We haven't even talked about biases yet. So yeah, I guess that's a question, really asking if you've been asked to analyze AI outputs. Why don't we start with you, Miriam?
I haven't, for any academic reason, had to analyze AI responses and everything. But in my limited usage of AI conversationally and talking to AI and seeing what it says, it is interesting to think about the bias and what it's propagating because I mean, everybody has their own different worldviews, right? And AI is a generative learning tool that like kind of takes everything from this big pool and generates that. Like it doesn't write its own stuff. It just espouses what other people have said. And so I think depending I'm just extrapolating here. I have not seen this myself. I think depending on which AI source you're using, certain biases might up that may not be helpful in like long-term societal things and like your learning path. So I think that is something that I hadn't thought about that we definitely need to look into more. But I think that sounds like a fun exercise, responding to an AI prompt and seeing if you can pick it apart and do it better.
I like that. Izzy, have you ever been asked to do that?
So yes, actually, my first week this semester, it's syllabus week. There isn't much to do, but we had this exercise of we had either like a phrase or a website, and then we would put it into different sorts of AI. One of them being Perplexity. I can't quite remember which other ones we had used, but it came up with like the sources and some of them were biased. I mean, not all of them, but there was a little bit of bias in each of them. So um I thought that that was a really cool thing to do just because you can see what each AI will come up for, like a certain phrase, like I had said. um so yeah.
Okay. What about you, Jenna?
So I have not had anyone ask me to kind of pick apart a response that AI has given me back, but I do agree with Miriam, and I think it would be a really fun activity because you do see bias, if you use a different AI tool versus another, you will see biases just like we were talking about. So I think it would be really cool to look at that and kind of try to pick it apart and see maybe why, or even if it just goes forth towards that company and how they do and how they run certain things. I mean, it would be really, really a cool thing to look at.
So I want to go back to something that you mentioned, Miriam, that your institution, University of Mississippi, is developing a course for general use of AI for students. I think it's really important for us to be able to look under the hood. You know, you've all talked about bias and how it's there and you can recognize it, but we haven't really talked about the training sets that these different AI tools are using, because that like I go to Perplexity for this, I go to Chat GPT for this, I go to Gemini for this, and we kind of can see the differences, but we're not really looking under the hood. Like we're not, and it's not, I know that for my own work, I've been trying to figure out what are the training sets for each of these tools. And some companies are really upfront about that. Um, and others are kind of cagey about it. So is this something that and I know Jenna, you haven't gotten a lot of guidance on this, so maybe this is a question for Miriam and Izzy. Did you talk about the training sets or data sets for AI in your writing classes, like the differences between the tools?
We didn't talk about the training sets. It was more just like a how-to. But based off of what I know about AI, I think where they draw from is really important. I remember hearing a couple months ago, I'd say it was, that Google Docs like uses your writing and the training set for their own little AI thing that's supposed to help with writing, and nobody really signs up for that. Like it's kind of almost a privacy breach. I have not fact checked that, so I don't know if that is real, but taking the hypothetical, I'd say companies should probably start putting in some like privacy things. And on a side note about that, something that I do know more about is AI usage in art because my little side hobby as an artist is really nice. And there have been big talks in my friend group about how AI is changing the landscape of art and how some people's styles will get kind of copied because it's really easy to tell when a picture is AI generated because it's like very smooth, it's almost kind of a natural. Like, don't get me wrong, AI can come up with some very beautiful pictures that can be used as like references and that kind of thing. But to steal from those artists and say, like, this is my like generative art is that's a whole other issue that I could talk about for a while. And I think that all in all, there needs to be some more regulation surrounding that. I know that some artists can poison their work, and it's like a code that you put into that won't let like Chat GPT or anything like that use that for reference photos in the training algorithm. And I think going on with that, there should be some more restrictions because that's kind of strange to have just your work being used.
Well, so that's interesting. That gets us to another question. Do students want to learn to use AI to do things or real hard soft skills for career development? So I'm also thinking, Miriam, how you mentioned using AI as a hobby. And I don't want to forget the last question either, but Izzy, do you use AI outside of academics? Like, have you just played around with it for fun?
I haven't really. What Jenna was saying about the Snapchat, I've played around with that a little bit, but there's certain points where it's just what it's saying. It's like it's a little out there. So I don't really do any of that, and I'm not super interested in, like the art side of AI. I've heard about it just, watching TikToks and all of that. But I mostly just use it for academics.
Okay. What about you, Jenna? Do you use it outside of school?
Not really. I generally just use it for my academics, but just what Izzy was piggybacking off of what I said earlier about the Snapchat. I've seen people, all over social media kind of have their little AI buddy, and I mean they talk to it all day, and it's kind of strange. I mean, I couldn't personally do that. I really have to have like a physical person and talk, I just do. But some people, they use it as their best friend and they can talk all day with it.
Wow. All right. We have another question from the audience. And Jenna, I'll let you take this first. Do you think colleges and universities should require faculty to include some kind of generative AI policy in their syllabus? Maybe not a one size fits all policy because disciplines are different, but something, some kind of guidance for students. Even if the university provides 3 or 4 choices of policy statements to pick from, like, so I guess this is really a question about should faculty have developed a policy to guide students on using AI in the discipline? What do you think, Jenna?
So, I mean, you can call me biased, but I 100% think that they should. I mean, we've talked about how students can take it and kind of run with it, and then they take the easy way out of things. I mean, when you're, I feel like coming out of high school, getting into college, it's kind of like a slap in the face. You kind of realize, like, I may have used, I mean, in high school, I've had peers that have used things like it was something I believe called Mathway or something, and you could take a picture of your equation, and it would tell you all the steps on how to solve it. It would tell you your answer. I mean, it could be helpful, but students will take it and run with it. I mean, it's just kind of I, I don't know. I just feel like students our age and coming right into it, if you kind of get lost, it's there for you to use, and they take advantage of it. So I do believe that institutions and faculty should put, even if it's just the professors and it's not necessarily the institution putting out a general policy. I think that, especially in like an English course, in a writing course, I feel like it would be really beneficial for the professors to put something in there in their syllabi about, you know, what their guidelines are, and don't go too far with it. And you can use it as a tool, just don't take advantage of it. I think it would be really helpful if they did that.
I'm curious, you've mentioned TikTok a couple of times. A previous speaker that we had talking about AI said that there are a lot of influencers on TikTok promoting AI. They're young people, some of them are college students. Have you seen anything like that on TikTok, Jenna? Have you seen influencers trying to push AI?
So no, not on TikTok, but I have seen quite a bit on YouTube, but the ads that pop up, I've seen quite a bit of Grammarly. I've seen, I mean, day after day, especially if I'm on campus and I'm using a campus computer or something. If I'm on the YouTube, it always pops up with ads for Grammarly and other resources to help you. So I've seen it in that way, but not on TikTok. I have not.
Okay. So we'll go back to the first question and then Miriam, if you want to talk about, I don't know if you use TikTok, but excuse me, do you think that there should be required policies in faculty syllabi?
I was thinking about the question as you were asking it, because required kind of seems like a harsh word, you know, like, oh, you have to do this. But I think all in all, it would be very beneficial because I feel like most students in their classes, if they know about AI, they are likely to use it. If, like, especially if their classes are hard and they want to get done with the homework. I mean, we all have lives, it's difficult, it's time consuming. And so I feel like going ahead and having that guideline in place will help guide students in the right manner. It's kind of catch it before it happens, you know? So I think it would be good for professors to include that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Izzy, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea, but there's also the question of is that going to cause pushback from professors? Are they, I mean, even if they don't agree with that, they're still going to be forced to do that, and is that going to cause any problems? And then um, just students will always find a way around it, no matter what. So like even if you have these policies in place, is it really that much different than what it is around now ish, from not having a policy? I mean it's just another question to be answered, but I mean what would happen,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely, and I'd love to hear from some of the faculty in the audience, what you think. So I am gonna pivot to ask Norma. We've looked at we've got a couple more questions in the Q&A. Do you feel like AI takes away from the learning experiences that students should have? Izzy, why don't you take that one?
Sorry, what was that question again?
Sure. Do you feel like AI takes away from the learning experiences? This is the way it's interesting the way this is worded, that students should have. Um, I'm not sure there's a one size fits all learning experience that students should have, but do you feel like AI is compromising your learning?
um I kind of mentioned this earlier about the unfortunately the dumbing down of our generation. Um, Me personally, I feel like I could have a better education um, if AI wasn't involved. Really, I mean, I understand the benefits. I've seen it, I've lived through it. Um, but at the same time, I guess you could call me old fashioned. I'd much rather have, human interaction and learn from my professors, and learn from my peers instead of, I guess like learning from AI. Um, and that's not just, AI gives me a lesson. It's more, I guess you use AI to, like, for example, for math, they say, you need to practice, practice, practice to get better at it. Now, if you add AI and it gives you like a shortcut, is that really beneficial to you learning math? Like Mathway, I've used that before. I mean, to be honest, I've used it to get through an entire assignment when I was in high school just to be done with it. Um, so unfortunately, I don't think I do think that AI is not the greatest for my education, me personally.
Okay. Miriam, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. Okay. So I understand what you're saying about not being beneficial to your education because it seemed like a good fix for just getting something done out of the way. And I think that that's an interesting conversation to have about AI because it, like, I feel the biggest benefit of AI is being able to cut down time that you're spending doing things. It's supposed to make everything a little bit more efficient. And if people are using that, so be it. They're going to get to that proctored test and they're going to fail. And hopefully, what they'll learn is that, hey, I do need to sit down and practice. And maybe that'll be kind of a wake up call. So it's not like you can skate by your entire life relying on AI. It just kind of comes down to like you facing your trial and being like, oh man, I messed up. Let me do this differently. And how can I better use this? And I think, hold on a second. What was the question again?
Do you think AI is somehow compromising your learning
My
experience?
learning experience. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I really don't think it is. Like if I'm busy for a week and I have a huge math assignment due and I'm just like, oh man, I need to go ahead and get this done. I might use AI to be like, how do I do this? And learn it that way, especially if I didn't get my notes in class or I was slacking off. But I'm still gonna have to go back and learn it myself, like if that makes sense. So it's like kind of like a band-aid, and then you go back through and you actually do the work. So I feel like it just comes down to how you view it and how you manage your time and your own motivation. I think it is helpful for me. That's just because I feel like I know what's best for my learning style by this point. I've spent a lot of time trying to optimize that in college. So
Right. What about you, Jenna? Do you think AI is compromising the learning experiences you should be having?
So I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I believe that it has, and it also has benefited me, but I kind of want to look at it from my major. I mean, I'm an education major, and in the future, I wouldn't want my students, like let's say I go into mathematics, and I'm, a sixth grade math teacher. I would not want my kids going to Mathway and learning on their own, because in sixth grade, I just don't believe there's not going to be a whole lot of students that are going to want to go home and get on their computer and learn how to do it if I just taught it to them, in school. So that's how I think about that one. I think that it would be better for those students just to learn it in the class instead of going on their own and trying to teach it to themselves. But at the same time, you have to think about those professors or teachers in general that aren't such good teachers. I mean, if you're not getting what you need to get, I mean, it's a great resource. You can go look at it and see steps for it, see other ways you can do things. I mean, it can be great, but it can also do some damage sometimes. So
Yeah, no, that's definitely a double-edged sword. That's fascinating. Um, I mean, this is all kind of making me think of, how when calculators became, widely used, people were like, students aren't going to know how to count or do their times tables. And I'm not sure if that happened or not, but I know that like in the beginning, we get really nervous about technology because we don't really understand it. And even other things like smartphones, that was going to ruin society. And some people would say maybe it has. But here's a question from the audience. When you think of your future in the workplace, do you ever predict a time when AI will no longer be a contentious issue and simply just the norm in all areas of life? Izzy, why don't you start us off?
My fire alarm might go off in a minute here. I'm so sorry. Do you mind repeating that question? They just
Not,
had an announcement go off.
not at all. Um, when you think of your future in the workplace, do you ever predict a time when AI will no longer be a contentious issue and just accepted?
I think that it's already on the way of to being there. But I still think that there's always going to be some issues, like I had said earlier about the the attorney issue with the case. Um, I mean, there's not too much to say about that. It's really just obviously this is going to be around for quite a while. It's just how everybody takes it and whether or not they apply that to their daily lives, their work in like the responsible, correct way, or if it just gets taken advantage of or moves in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. Do you worry? I'm just going to do a follow-up question with Izzy, and then we'll throw it to Jenna and Miriam. Do you worry about misinformation? Like, and Miriam brought up art, AI being used in art, and I think of AI in for audio files. There's already been an issue where in politics there was a robocall that was generated by AI to tell people not to vote on voting day. Like, do those things kind of worry you, like being able to detect misinformation?
Um, yes, I feel like most people have a pretty good grasp of whether AI is used in a certain situation versus not. Like, the art. I did have another experience where I could compare like a real picture versus an AI picture. And to be honest, I got half of them wrong. So I said, this is obviously a real person, and then it wasn't. It was an AI generated picture. And I feel like, I mean, I've seen it in politics. There's recently something with Biden just saying like there was like a phone call that was made and it ended up being AI, but it was just scary to me because for so long people believed that. Um, my fire alarm is going off right now, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna
if
mute
you
myself
if
and
you
head
need to
outside.
if you need to drop off, that's fine. We don't want you to burn.
Okay.
Um, Miriam, what do you gosh, I'm forgetting the question. Do you think it's going to be widely accepted or remain contentious, AI, in your workplace?
Well, I think as it progresses, certain aspects of it will start to be accepted as the norm, but as it's being accepted, new things will come out that people will talk about, and it's gonna be like that for a while, I assume. Um, I do want to talk specifically about like the workforce question thing
Mhm.
because I think one of the biggest concerns that a lot of people have is lack of jobs and whatnot, and like whether or not accepting AI means that AI is going to be pushed into the workforce and people will lose jobs, and that is a concern for the economy and all of that. And I'm not the most knowledgeable on the economy or how jobs work or how to run a society. I mean, I'm a freshman in college, but I have ideas. And I think one of the biggest thing, like all technology is meant to make life a little bit easier on us, right? Like, I mean, think about how many years ago we had to wash clothes by hand and how much time that took. And then we came up with the washing machine, and now we don't have to, we can spend that time doing other things. I think that's what normalized AI taking over jobs will do. It will allow us to do other things, allow us to spend time focusing on other areas that we just didn't have the time allotted for. And I think that in and of itself is a progression to a better world because it opens up opportunities. And I think you can think about it in that way. And while there are some scary unknown aspects, we're all in the same mix together. And so it just depends on how we deal with our circumstances.
All right. Jenna, what about you? Do you think it's going to remain contentious in the workplace? And as a person who's going into education, um, I could see both sides of that. What do you think?
So I really do think it's going to continue to be kind of quote unquote the norm. I feel like the AI, especially in academic uses, it's going to continue to come out with new things. It's gonna just continue to add things. And of course, I think Miriam had said it. It's when something new might come out, and that's going to be the talk for a long time, and then in a couple years later, something else is going to come out, and that'll be the talk for the long time. So I personally do think when you look at it from my aspect of wanting to be in the education field, I think it will be. I'm gonna constantly see it, whether it be in seeing it in kids writing or seeing it with their math or seeing it, with their science work even. I mean, it can go on and go on. So I do think that it's gonna continue to be, there.
So let's stick with this, and but kind of flip it around, because up till now we've been talking about students using AI, or you may be using AI as a future employee. But this is an interesting question from our audience. How do you feel about your instructors using AI to grade your assignments? So if you submit some piece of writing to them, and instead of reading it themselves, they just run it through an AI that kind of picks up on maybe the issues with it, and then they give you a grade based on that. Like, and Jen, I'll stick with you because you're the education major. How would you feel about that?
I would not like that. We've seen already issues with AI, whether it may be like glitches or even the biases. I mean, you really have to start thinking about that. I mean, I would not like if a professor graded, with using AI. I mean, I would want my professor or, whoever's looking at my work to look at my work and say what they want to say about it. I would not like for something to be generated and then, put a grade on it. I would not like that.
Interesting. Izzy, are you able to talk, or are your alarm still going off?
I am. They've been having problems, so it goes on and off throughout the day sometimes. No biggie. Um, but I think that it can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. For example, like the better side of it is, professors, they usually have multiple classes, and like we were talking about earlier, one of Miss Norma's classes was 1,000 people, she said.
Hmm.
So I can see how that could be beneficial to the professor. But then on the other side of it, like Jenna was saying, it's not very helpful because you want honest feedback. You don't want um, it can be biased. So if the AI sees it one way or like you see it a different way, then you might get a not so great grade. I mean, I'm not exactly sure that's how that works, but I could definitely see it being that way, and that wouldn't be very beneficial to the students, which we're paying for this education. We
Hmm.
want the best that we can find.
I want you to know, Izzy, that I also took, it was some online quiz, I think from the Washington Post. Can you recognize the fake image? And not only did I got them all wrong, and all the ones that I thought were real people were all fake, and all the fake ones I thought were real. So I'm horrible at the images. But Miriam, how would you feel about professors using AI to grade your assignments?
Well, it already kind of happens in my chemistry and bio labs because the TAs will use Stimble or LabFlow, and in that, when you're doing your post labs or your pre labs, it's graded by an AI, and there are paragraph responses and multiple choice and things like that. And it's understandable for the multiple choice for the AI to grade those because it's either correct or it's incorrect. And where it gets dicey is when it gets to the paragraph. Usually in the paragraph structure, there are certain keywords that the system is looking for, and if you say those things, you get the answer correct. But my TAs still have to go back and read the entire thing and give out the correct points because it's in the initial stages of that. It's not in beta, but it's still new. And so they're still having to go through and put in that manual effort. But I kind of understand for certain aspects like that when you have so many students and so like that would take so much time out of your day to grade and sit down. I can understand where AI can be used in that. However, when it comes to more of the philosophical and abstract things, like if you're writing a paper, of like a history paper, a philosophy paper, whatever, something where you're really getting down to human critical thinking and that kind of stuff, a person is going to have to grade that. AI is not going to be able to tell you whether or not you did that correct or incorrect because it's subjective.
Right.
So,
Like, I think we might have time for one more question. Norma, are there any questions in the chat that we haven't gotten to?
There are a lot. I've tried to move them over into the questions for you. There is one, do you feel like AI makes it more difficult to show your skills as a student? Or put differently, is it easier for everyone to shine using AI?
Oh, well, I want to start with Miriam on this one because you were the one who brought up earlier loss of voice. And as an artist too, maybe you could speak to loss of style or maybe I don't know, maybe it works both ways, but what do you think, Miriam?
So the question was whether or not it makes every student shine or makes every student not do so well. Was that the question?
It was Norma, it was helps them shine or
That you don't get to show your skills as a student, your individuality and your skills.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think if everybody is using AI, there's going to be a lack of individuality because they're all using the same AI. It's going to come through like that. And so in that sense, it would be damaging to the students' potential and showing off their skills. Hmm, that's kind of a difficult question to answer because I feel like the students who are going to shine aren't typically going to use AI because they have these ideas that they want to espouse. They have stuff they want to get out into the world. And I guess I could take it through the art route. I've seen a lot of people trying to redraw AI art, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Like you have an AI posted picture, and somebody's like, I'm going to draw this better. I'm going to give it human characteristics to make it pop and really shine. And it looks basically the exact same, just like the texture is a little bit different. And so that's difficult when it comes to showing your technique and your skill when it comes to art, and that's over in the digital art domain. Traditional art is so far not as touched by that. It's more of a hot topic in terms of graphic design. Like if people are designing logos and things like that that are eye-catching, is there something that's lost if an AI does that? That's where that's going, and I think that's where the conversation could lead. So I think it depends on what field you're in and how you're using it. Like for students specifically, I don't really see how it would make too much of a difference because people are still going to want to create art and want to write their own papers and show their own ideas, even if AI is available.
I would love for everyone to be able to answer this question, but we are coming at the top of the hour, so I'm going to hand it back to Norma to share some information with us.
Thank you, Patty. This was a wonderful conversation. The chat has been just exploding with all sorts of conversation, and I wish we could really continue this, but we all have time constraints. I would like to thank our 3 students for taking time out of their Friday to spend with us and share their thoughts. As faculty and academic administrators, we really do need to hear from the students so that we can take that student voice back into our policymaking and into our processes so that we do keep the students at the center of our learning experiences. So thank the 3 of you, Jenna, Bella, Izzy, and Miriam. Thank you so much for your time and your sharing your thoughts with us. And Patty, thank you for moderating this whole conversation, which could go on for hours. I would like to ask our audience to take just a few minutes out of your schedule today, if you can, to complete our survey for today's presentation using the link that's going to be popped into the chat for you. If you don't have time because you've got something else going on immediately after, don't worry. We will send you the link to the survey in a follow-through email. Probably tomorrow is when you'll get it. You'll also get the link to the Strategies for Success 2024 playlist, which will also contain the video from today's discussion. So we encourage you to do that, but please give us the survey results if you can. We really do benefit from those as part of our continuous improvement cycle. We also invite you to our upcoming webinar series that we are sponsoring along with our partners at Achieving the Dream. It's called Putting Equity into Practice. It is on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time, March 14th through April 4th. There's 4 of the webinars in this series based on some strategy guides that were just published. Registration is now open on our website. So head over to our website to see about registering for that if you've got the time. Register if you don't have the time anyway, because we will also post the recordings of those on our website once they're done. And finally, we encourage you to visit our website, not just for the recordings from these various webinars, but also to our resources page. All of our resources are free to read online, or you may download them and share with others in your department or at your institution. So With that said, I would love to thank our panelists and our moderator for such an engaging and exciting conversation today. I would like to thank our audience for taking time out to spend with us and share your thoughts and ideas in the chat and Q&A with us today. We look forward to seeing you at future Every Learner Everywhere events. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much.